Okay, so Tourette syndrome, you have to have it when you're a child. You have to have tics, and you have to have at least two motor tics and one vocal tic. So for me, I had motor tics like blinking and jerking my arms and making weird like facial expressions. And then I had a vocal tic, which involved coughing and making like a sniffing noise. So I got diagnosed when I was around 13 is when I started to show symptoms. I think I started showing symptoms as early as like 9. My parents said they first saw me like making coughing noises and making weird expressions. And then I suffered with it all through high school until I decided to go on the carnivore diet. I'm 20. I coped pretty well. I didn't have as severe symptoms as some other people. I didn't curse and I didn't um, do anything too crazy that caused like attention to always be on me. But it definitely is a little bit confusing and it's hard to like understand why I'm making these movements, why I'm doing these things. That was a struggle with it. And, just being in school and being in kids, sometimes kids aren't the kindest. So I actually never went on medication because I was so young that he didn't really want to, my neurologist didn't want to put me on any antipsychotics, which I'm very thankful for because obviously there's a lot of side effects with taking medicine. So I'm religious and I've always thought that, God gave us animals for a reason. And when I was in high school, obviously my family disagrees heavily with me because they are all vegan. But when I was in high school, I was researching ways that I could help my health. And I kept seeing the carnivore diet like over and over again whenever I was searching for things. So I decided that I would learn how to cook meat and start going on my own diet. Both my parents were vegan. So my mom cooked vegan. So I had to eat vegan. And as a kid, I didn't really care too much. But as I started to get older, I wanted to play sports and wanted to be stronger. And I was getting kind of annoyed about how all we ate was tofu and veggies. And so I really wanted to try meat and see if that would change my health and make me better at sports. And it did. We ate tofu like once a day and definitely ate like a lot of broccoli and greens. But I did eat a lot of like Oreos and stuff as a kid and chips and soda. And like my freshman year of high school, I decided to try and cut out junk food, no soda, no chips, no Oreos. And that didn't really change anything. But my sophomore year, that's when I decided to go on the carnivore diet. And I wasn't necessarily thinking about my Tourette's. I was just thinking about I want to be stronger. I wanted to play on the varsity soccer team. So I wanted to, be able to bulk up a little bit and be a lot stronger and get rid of my acne and my eczema, which both went away. But I wasn't thinking about Tourette's until after about 4 or 5 months, I realized that I was barely having any tics. And it was, kind of a shock to me. When I first brought it up to my parents, I brought it up around Christmas time. I told them, hey, I really want to try to start eating meat. Like, what do you guys think about that? And they were like, oh, they dismissed me. They're like, no, 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 you don't need that. That's not good for your health. Around April, I told them, I was like, hey, I want to do this. I think it's my own body, my own choice. I want to eat meat. And I had a like long talk with my parents and they told me we came to a decision that okay, I could start eating meat, but I would be the one who has to cook it and I'd be the one who has to pay for it. They were hoping it would be just something that, a personality change that I would get over it. I'm a kid, I'm not gonna stick to it. And then after a year went by, they were really shocked that I was still wanting to pursue this. Yeah, so they definitely, when they started to notice that, I told them that I thought that there was a correlation to the carnivore diet. They're still skeptical on that, but they definitely have noticed that my Tourette's is gone. So they're looking into it a little bit. My little sister, she's starting to go towards the carnivore. She wants to eat meat. And my dad, every now and then, he eats meat. So when I was tired, I would tick more. When I'm angry or sad, I would have a lot more ticks than normal. My sophomore year, I started the carnivore diet, and then about 5 months after that, my ticks started to go away. So it's been about 4 years. So I eat eggs, and I occasionally consume some dairy. I'm a big coffee drinker, so I put a little bit of milk in my coffee. But I eat a lot of just plain chicken and some bone broth and a lot of steak and red meat. But I did tell my primary doctor, that I no longer have any symptoms, and they were pretty surprised. I've kind of kept it personal until recently, when I've decided to, okay, it's been 4 years. I feel like I could pretty passionately talk about this. So I'm slowly starting to come out and share my story with people. So I did have one of my closest friends in high school. She was vegan, and she was really upset with me when I first went on the diet, and she didn't really believe in it. And then recently, she in college, she was researching nutrition for her, I think it was like a nutrition class, and she was coming up with carnivore stuff, and she messaged me and she was like, hey, I've been reading a lot about this, and I'm actually going to go on the carnivore diet. And she's gone on it for a year now, and I've been fully supportive. But I definitely have some friends that I have lost from going to carnivore diet. They just don't understand. They won't agree with me, even if I've told them that, it's fine if we have our differences. They don't want to hear it from me. So that maybe I should train more, and maybe it was eating just more. They bought me some type of vegan protein powder that I stopped taking, because I found out that there's a lot of metal inside some protein powders. And then obviously as soon as I started eating meat, I started running faster and lifting more weight in the gym. So
when we look at kidney function, there's something that is often checked as a screening tool by most family physicians. It's called the estimated glomerular filtration rate. It's often found on the basic metabolic panel, and it is calculated based on something called serum creatinine, right? Serum creatinine is used to calculate what your GFR is, and it's an estimate. For you guys that get your labs done in the United States, you'll almost always see, two numbers. There'll be estimated GFR, which is what yours might be, unless you're African American, and there'll be a different value for that. And the value for African Americans usually shows an estimated GFR that is higher, typically around 10, 12%, something like that. Why is that? Okay, so the question is because the assumption is that African Americans tend to carry more muscle mass than other population groups, and therefore their GFR will be higher. Well, creatinine is basically a reflection of body protein and protein turnover, more or less. And so the standard way to measure GFR or calculate it, remember it's an estimate, using creatinine-based measures, have a big flaw in that. And the flaw is protein turnover. And so people that have a lot of muscle mass, people that work out really hard, or people that are eating a lot of protein will artificially see a decrease in GFR. Remember, low GFR is considered bad, high GFR is considered good. One of the cutoffs often used is below or above 60. If you're below 60, that's signs of early renal failure. Some people call that class 1 chronic renal insufficiency. Above 90 is considered pretty good, and then above 100 is considered, totally good. And so what happens if you go on a high protein diet, a carnivore diet, and all of a sudden your GFR shows up low? Well, your doctor's going to say, hey, you need to cut back on eating all that protein and red meat, and oh my gosh, your kidneys are frying. That most likely is an error. It's most likely due to their inability to understand the physiology. And so there's another test. It's called cystatin C. It's spelled Cystatin. Most physicians haven't heard of it. Most physicians don't know about it, but it is a very widely accepted tool for measuring, another way of measuring the estimated GFR. And it does not depend upon protein intake or protein turnover or muscle mass. And so when you do those together, you might see a low GFR with creatinine, but your GFR based on cystatin C is completely fine. So here's a nice example. Dr. Ted Naiman, had his done recently, and he saw the same exact thing. Ted's lean, he's fit, he's healthy. He eats a high protein diet. He's the author of the protein energy ratio diet. For you guys that may or may not know who he is, I've interviewed him several times over the years. And he went and got his labs done. Oh my God, his GFR was 54. That's going to be low, right? So what did he do? He did what any smart person would do that has a sense of knowledge. He got a cystatin C based test. And what did his GFR show up in that situation? Well, it was 112, which is fine. I can tell you from my own personal experience, I had very similar numbers. I think my GFR at one point I saw a 56. Checked it on cystatin C, it was 118. So good question, important concept. You need to educate your doctor. If you're a physician and watching me, just go read up on cystatin C. Look at the literature, the primary literature on cystatin C versus creatinine-based measurements, and you'll see that cystatin C completely eliminates the confounder of high protein diets, high muscle mass, on and on and on. So anyway, we know meat is not killing your kidneys, high protein is not killing your kidneys. That's garbage, it's nonsense. 2018 paper from Stu Phillips clearly demonstrated that. So just educate yourself, guys. Good question.
I'm from New Jersey, Northeast guy, and I played baseball growing up competitively. Great family. Mom was a great Italian cook. So, definitely had like a plethora of home cooked meals, pastas, probably fell more into that like standard American diet approach. But I think the way that I always justified it was that I was an athlete. So I was burning a lot of calories, and that's how I could get away with it. Right. So, I was drinking the protein shakes, drinking the pre-workout. I ended up having about 20 scholarships to play baseball collegiately. And then I initially went to Seton Hall University, which is a small Division I school in New Jersey. A lot of fried food, a lot of pizzas, not sleeping great. Was, Friday, Saturday could be drinking, 8 to 10 drinks a night, because that's just like the college culture. It was part of the baseball culture. That was the first period where I started noticing blood in my stool. And I got a colonoscopy. That was the first colonoscopy I ever got. I got diagnosed with proctitis, took a suppository for that. It went away within a few months, nothing crazy. I was working an internship in New York City. I lived with my parents in New Jersey. So I would commute 2 hours one way, 2 hours home. So 4 hours total. And I started noticing blood in my stool coming back. And it was ironic because the last day of my internship in August of 2016, I literally was on the toilet on the train for like 2 hours straight and almost passed out. So checked myself into the hospital, colonoscopy, and then I got diagnosed with full-blown ulcerative colitis. And I'd probably lost almost 30 pounds at that point. I go on the biologic Remicade because my stomach is so chronically inflamed. And they're telling me, look, because there's no cure for colitis, you're going to have to be on this your entire life. And you're going to have to get an injection every 6 to 8 weeks. And I think the medication was around like $50K per infusion, Dr. Baker. So luckily that was covered by insurance. White rice, bananas, like lean chicken breast. So it's funny looking back as like, that's the diet that they wanted me to follow. Looking back now, I'm not anti-biologic by any means, because I genuinely believe that the Remicade did its job to get me out of that chronically inflamed state. And then I also started getting into endurance sports, like doing triathlons, doing some marathons, et cetera. But with these marathons, I know you're close with Zach Bitter. I'm doing all this carb loading and taking in all these gels and stuff, and my stomach just feels terrible. Here I am, I'm physically looking better, I'm feeling better, but I'm still having issues with my stomach. And so everything changed for me in 2019. I was scrolling on Instagram, and then I see Chris Bell. And I hadn't seen Chris in a while. I think I had seen him when he directed Bigger, Stronger, Faster. And I looked at his face, and he looked like he must have lost like 80 plus pounds. It was unbelievable. And he was posting about this carnivore diet that he was following, and I'm like, okay, so all this guy eats is red meat, eggs, and water. Like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. And then by following him, I started following you. I listened to your podcast on Rogan, and I'm like, okay, well, now here's a surgeon that's having he's having amazing benefits from this diet. So that gave it way more legitimacy for me. And then on Reddit, people started posting there were a ton of people with Crohn's, colitis, IBS that were talking about the incredible benefits that they were having to this carnivore type diet. And I said to myself, look, what's the harm in trying this diet for 2 weeks? And I literally noticed after a week, my gut in the amount of times that I was going to the bathroom severely decreased to the point where I was only going like once or twice a day. I also noticed too, my mood and anxiety, not that I ever had like anxiety or depression, things that used to bother me no longer bother me. I also noticed too that I could get away with working out a couple times a week as opposed to every single day. And I was making amazing gains in the gym. No stomach discomfort. My skin cleared up. It was like everything improved. So I did that diet for a month. And then I did a strict carnivore for another month after that, and it just had way better effects.